The following is a CNN special report.
A brazen escape.
There was a hole cut out of the back of the cell through which these inmates escaped.
Two convicted killers cutting their way to freedom, emerging from a manhole outside the prison walls.
We estimate they climbed down and had power tools and were able to get out to this facility.
Two dangerous murderers, now free.
To kill anybody they feel like killing anytime.
How'd they get the power tools? Who helped them? And where are they now?
We're leaving no stone unturned.
A scent in the woods, false sightings, all part of a desperate search through the Adirondacks and along the Canadian border. From the ground and from the air.
They could have gone on to the north up here to all this vast woods towards Canada. Pretty easy to get lost up in there.
Is law enforcement closing in? Hello, I'm Randy Kay in Dannemora, New York. I'm standing just yards away from Clinton Correctional Facility, where inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat broke out of. It's the first time anyone has escaped from this maximum security facility since it opened back in the mid-1800s. That bold escape was just the beginning of a story that's almost too twisted to believe, involving murder, manipulation, and sex. Before the sun even began to rise over the small town of Dannemora, New York, they were gone. An escape plan worthy of a screenplay, carried out by two very dangerous men.
On a scale of 1 to 10, they're a 10 dangerous wild animal.
Prisoners Richard Matt and David Sweat had adjoining cells here at Clinton Correctional Facility. The two were last seen Friday night, June 5th, around 10:30 p.m., during what's called a standing count, where both Matt and Sweat showed themselves standing inside their cells. But just hours later, a shocking discovery that would leave prison guards shaking their heads, law enforcement on high alert, and this small upstate New York community terrified.
This is a very elaborate plan, but we are only at the very preliminary stages of determining exactly what happened.
What happened would take time to piece together. All authorities knew at this point was that at 5:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 6th, routine bed checks turned up only lumps of clothing under the sheets. The two prisoners were missing.
They weren't actual dummies, but they had clothing on, and it looked like people were sleeping in the bunks with a sweatshirt, hoodie on.
How could they have disappeared? After all, this is a maximum security prison. There are visual bed checks every 2 hours throughout the night, and guard towers high above the prison walls. But as authorities began to take a closer look, details soon emerged of a stunning escape, not over the prison wall, but underneath it.
The search revealed there was a hole cut out of the back of the cell through which these inmates escaped.
A hole in the back of the cell. This is what it looked like. The men cut their way right through the cell wall and steel that was a 1/4 inch thick. The escapees then negotiated a maze of underground tunnels and pipes. The prisoners got their first taste of freedom in years when they popped out of that manhole right there at that yellow tape. This is actually the closest that we're allowed to get to it. And it was a pretty bold exit plan because right over there is a health club, and it's surrounded by homes in this quiet neighborhood. So anyone who might have been outside and might have seen them could have quickly called police. The manhole is just a block and a half from the prison, where New York Governor Andrew Cuomo retraced the men's steps hours after they disappeared.
Must have kept you awake with all that cutting, huh?
Pictures from the governor's tour of the prison are proof of the elaborate escape. Here's how they figure Matt and Sweat made it out. Once they slipped out of their cell, it's believed they maneuvered across this 6-story high catwalk, eventually dropping down to a series of tunnels. From there, they broke through a double brick wall, then incredibly cut through a 24-inch steam pipe, shimmying their way through it. On the other end, about a block away from the prison by then, They cut yet another hole, this time to get out of the pipe. After that, they cut right through the chain and lock holding down the manhole cover.
If there was a rabid tiger running around the neighborhood, or a rabid lion, or something that could kill anybody, well, these are those animals. These two guys are those kind of animals, like rabid animals that could kill anybody at the drop of a hat.
A closer look revealed the men had likely been using some type of metal grate to conceal the hole they were cutting in their cell. Investigators believe they also may have used a hacksaw to keep the noise down. Chipped paint on the cell's walls and numerous paint jobs only appeared to help disguise the hole.
The New York State Police, Department of Correctional Services, and all of our state, local, and federal law enforcement partners are conducting a full investigation into the escape of these two inmates.
The escapees left a message for those coming for them. This yellow Post-it note was found on one of the pipes they'd cut through. Dripping with sarcasm, it reads, "Have a nice day," with a smiley face on it.
Sure, they're taunting, they're being arrogant, they're going, hey, you stupid idiots, you weren't watching us close enough and we got out.
A variety of tactical units, like SWAT units, a number of K-9 to include bloodhounds, even 3 aerial support aircraft, 2 state police helicopters, and 1 from Homeland Security have been in the air since this event occurred this morning.
The urgency was clear. 35-year-old David Sweat and 48-year-old Richard Matt had killed before. Sweat was serving a life sentence without parole for killing a sheriff's deputy back in 2002. Matt had been convicted of 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 2 counts of robbery. He'd kidnapped his former boss, William Rickerson, back in 1997. After torturing him for about 24 hours, he killed and dismembered him. Matt was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Lee Bates served time after acting as Richard Matt's accomplice in that 1997 murder. He testified against him, and in a phone interview with Anderson Cooper, called Matt evil.
If you wanted to take a picture of the devil, that's the face that you would see.
Bates remembers Matt shoving a knife sharpener in his victim's ear and breaking his fingers before killing him.
I have seen him kill. He did kill Mr. Rickerson, his old boss, in my presence. In a fit of rage, he reached into the car, grabbed Mr. Rickerson by his head and snapped his neck in front of me.
Richard Matt had escaped prison before. In 1986, he broke out of an Erie County jail, only to be caught and sentenced to a maximum security prison in Elmira, New York, on charges of escape and forgery.
He's a master manipulator that knows a prison system, that knows the streets, street smarts, and is a very cunning and dangerous individual. Certainly, he planned that just as well as he did back many years ago when he escaped from a prison up here near Buffalo.
What may have made the escape somewhat easier this time around is the fact that Richard Matt and David Sweat were housed in what's called the Honor Block at Clinton Correctional Facility, a prison block reserved for inmates who have gone years without significant disciplinary problems. The Honor Block has its privileges, like hot plates and refrigerators in cells. Here, prisoners are also allowed to congregate for hours with fellow inmates, which may have given Matt and Sweat the time they needed to plot their escape. Prisoners housed in the Honor Block are also allowed to wear civilian clothing instead of the traditional prison garb, which also may have allowed them to blend in easier once on the outside. Their good behavior landed Richard Matt and David Sweat jobs in the prison tailor shop. Could that be where they accessed those power tools needed to cut their way to freedom?
It was truly extraordinary and unusual and almost impossible to duplicate. But we want to find out exactly what happened. And one of the big questions is, where did the tools come from?
To answer that question, investigators begin to zero in on Tailor Shop 1, where the escapees worked alongside a prison seamstress named Joyce Mitchell. And the more they look into Joyce Mitchell, the plot starts to unravel, complete with sex, betrayal, and a plan to murder. On the surface, this woman would seem like the most unlikely accomplice to a crime. 51 years old, she is a wife and a mother, married to the same man for 14 years. But Joyce Mitchell has secrets. Secrets that have landed her in jail, accused of helping two dangerous felons break free.
I did many escapees on America's Most Wanted that would have never gotten out if it wasn't for the woman who helped him.
In this case, authorities say Joyce Mitchell is the woman who helped Richard Matt and David Sweat with their plan. Just how did this wife and mother become involved with two convicted murderers? It started with David Sweat. In 2013, Sweat was working in the prison tailor shop when he met and befriended Mitchell, the seamstress there. They formed a relationship so close it caught the notice of others at the prison. And so they were investigated for having an inappropriate relationship.
He was moved out of the tailor block that he was in, put into a second unit. He was then brought back into a tailor unit, but not the one that Joyce Mitchell was in.
But as Sweat was moved out, Richard Matt moved in. Matt was known as a ladies' man, a charmer, who befriended Mitchell and took it perhaps even further than Sweat. In 2013, the two started a sexual relationship, according to a source close to the investigation. They would meet and have sex in the tailor shop when no one else was around. All this time, Joyce Mitchell kept this from her husband Lyle, according to his attorney, even though he also worked in the prison tailor shop and knew both Richard Matt and David Sweat.
Joyce has established a pattern of deception.
Former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole says inmates can be like predators, on the lookout for vulnerable prey, which are often women who work inside the prisons.
It starts small, asking for her to bring in a candy bar or asking her to bring in a stamp. There's wording that goes along with something like this: oh, if only I'd met a woman like you 20 years ago, I'd never be in this situation. So she would be very gullible in believing that. And that's really called something we refer to in the FBI as magical thinking.
Joyce Mitchell told investigators Richard Matt made her feel special. And other reports say she thought it could have been love. But was she in so deep she was willing to risk everything for it?
I don't know why anybody's surprised. I think all Americans know that crazy, lonely, low self-esteem type of women write prisoners in prison. Woman tried to marry Charles Manson. Women married the Menendez brothers. A woman married the Hillside Strangler who murdered 17+ women in LA and tortured them with coat hangers. It never ceased to amaze me how women are seduced by these guys.
Mitchell wasn't just risking her marriage, she was risking her freedom. All the while she was having this relationship with Matt, investigators say she was also aware of their escape plot, even giving them tools to help them. Investigators say she smuggled in hacksaw blades, chisels, drill bits, and other items, and delivered them right into the prisoner's hands. And it didn't stop there. Authorities say Mitchell admitted she was going to drive the getaway car and even had a time and place to meet the prisoners after they made their great escape.
This is where they were supposed to meet. This power plant is just a few hundred yards away from the manhole where the men emerged from. The power plant's smokestack, I'm told, is visible from the tailor shop at the prison where the two men worked with Joyce Mitchell. The DA says that smokestack was likely a marker for their meeting place.
But on the day of the planned getaway, she panicked, saying she had chest pains, and instead of picking up her lover and his fellow fugitive, she went to the hospital with her husband, Lyle. Meanwhile, the killers are on the loose.
Prisoners have all the time in the world. They're con men to begin with. These guys are sociopaths. They manipulate women. They got to this woman's low self-esteem, and they got her, which I think is really pretty sad. Now her life is ruined. Her life is holy hell. They're out there running around. They couldn't care less about her.
$200,000 bond on the felony.
Joyce Mitchell was arrested on a felony charge of providing prison contraband and a misdemeanor charge of criminal facilitation. She has pleaded not guilty to both charges. Her lawyer says she is distraught, but her story and her possible involvement is far from over. Lyle Mitchell visited his wife in jail after she was taken in and was confronted outside by ABC News with a stunning question.
What do you make of the reports that she was trying to have you killed?
That's right. Not only was Joyce Mitchell allegedly having a sexual relationship with a prisoner and potentially helping them plot their escape, authorities say she was also aware of a plan to have her husband, Lyle Mitchell, killed.
Did you know anything about the escape plan?
Lyle Mitchell has also been questioned by police, but has not been charged with anything.
We had no information whatsoever that he had prior knowledge of the escape, or that he participated or actively assisted in the escape of the two inmates.
His lawyer says he didn't know about any of his wife's activities until he confronted her 2 days after the escape. That's when she told him the escapees wanted to kill him. Lyle was stunned when he heard all the details about the affair and the murder plot, and he feels betrayed by his wife.
I hate to use a cliche, but, love is blind.
Lyle Mitchell says he will not stand behind her anymore, according to his attorney, and Joyce Mitchell remains behind bars. She says she didn't want Lyle to be hurt, implying she may have been coerced into helping the inmates.
The way I understand it is she's still on board with the escape plan. She's still willing to help them out. They have a plan to do harm to Lyle. She doesn't agree with that. She doesn't want Lyle hurt. They start threatening her, saying, we're going to have someone hurt him anyway. We're going to have someone hurt him in the facility, or we're going to have someone go to the house and hurt him. You've got to help us out.
For a woman of many secrets, some are still unknown. The main one, is she telling investigators everything she knows? Or does she have more information on where Richard Matt and David Sweat were heading? A massive manhunt underway. Fugitives David Sweat and Richard Matt on the run. Law enforcement moving into neighborhoods, going door to door, leaving nothing to chance.
We're leaving no stone unturned. They could be literally anywhere.
But where were they? And what did the prison seamstress, now accused of aiding in their escape, really know?
What do we know about their plan after they left the prison?
Well, she's been consistent. She's been consistent in that it was 7 hours from this area, and she didn't know whether it was somewhere in New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Canada. If we believe her to be telling the truth on that, then they were keeping her at bay about what their ultimate plan may have been.
Checkpoints and roadblocks were quickly set up as police searched each vehicle for anything out of the ordinary, imploring the public to be on the lookout.
They could be holed up in a home somewhere, canned food, maybe watching the whole search on television, nice and cool, nice and dry.
Lee Bates is a former accomplice of Richard Matt's.
They have something in common that says, we're out, and when they catch us, we're done. And their mindset's probably going to be, they're not going to take us alive.
Alive or not, residents here on edge.
State police have been by here, without exaggeration, probably 50 times in the last 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
Have they asked you any questions?
Yes, they have. If I've seen anything, heard anything, the answer's been no.
It looks like tracks leading here. It looks like you got broken pieces down here, so we don't know if somebody went through here. And if you go down, you got like a little stream coming down. So if you follow the stream, it's a nice way out.
This woman was checking her attic and basement every night before bed.
Somebody's going to see something somewhere. Somebody's going to give it up.
In Dannemora, investigators concentrated on a perimeter near the prison. Four-wheelers cut paths through rough terrain. The thick brush made it hard to see.
So search teams are resorting to other means, using motion detectors similar to this one. They have cameras on them and they can be attached to any tree here in the woods. When the sensors pick up activity, they snap a photo.
Law enforcement also on the hunt from the air. You can see what search teams were up against. So many places for the escapees to hide. 6 million acres of trees and heavy woods.
pretty easy to hide out here.
In the distance, another challenge, the Canadian border.
We are looking at the vehicles, we're looking at the individuals, opening trunks, opening back of doors of trucks and things, so it is a lot, very extensive.
The escapees may be looking for a place like this to cross the border. They'd certainly have an easier time. Border Patrol can't secure the entire northern border, so there are plenty of spots like this one. Open areas where you don't need any passports or documentation to cross the border. So watch this. Here I'm standing in the U.S. I can keep one foot in the U.S. and put another foot in Canada. This is the border right here. Or I can just simply walk into Canada, no questions asked.
Closer to the prison, tips were pouring in. In the village of Saranac, investigators believed they were getting close when a resident thought he spotted the two escapees jumping over a stone wall in the backyard. Another alleged sighting, two men spotted walking in the middle of the night in the pouring rain. And another possible lead, near the Pennsylvania border. And now, possibly the strongest lead yet. Another sighting. A witness says a man was running out of a cabin into the woods in Franklin County, New York, just 20 miles away from the prison. Sources say DNA from both men was found inside. Could this be the break investigators are looking for?
No lead is too small for us to investigate. Law enforcement is maintaining a strong and visible presence in this region.
But the fugitives are still on the run.
Neither of them are from this area, but that does not discount the fact that they could not have done research or had some collaboration as to the location of this cabin or the region in general. We ask the public to remain on alert, take any necessary safety precautions, and remain vigilant about reporting anything that is out of the ordinary.
These people are in need. They're in need of money. They're in need of to sustain themselves. They're hunkered down right now. They're somewhere, they're going to have to make a move. And at some point when they feel comfortable, they're going to surface and they're going to make a mistake.
I think that their long established history on both of their parts to use violence to live their lives, to use violence because they get upset with somebody, that will ultimately get them caught again.
How long before they get caught again is anybody's guess. But investigators remain vigilant, and so does the public, tracking down every lead, anything to return the escapees back here behind bars. Until then, Richard Matt and David Sweat will remain on the U.S. Marshals Most Wanted list, reserved for only the most dangerous criminals. I'm Randy Kay. Thanks for watching.